Shalom, shalom, Mishpachah. This is Jared Yao checking in. Let's get started. Shalom, Mishpachah. We always are going to start off doing a new thing here. Mostly everything we talk about is going to be the happenings that are in Babylon, as opposed to world events, of course. But we'll start off with Revelation 18:24. And in her was found the blood of prophets and of saints and of all that were slain upon the earth. We know this is talking about Babylon at the end of the world. As this is the end of the world, you guys. We are living in the end times. We are living in the last beast kingdom. After this kingdom comes the kingdom of heaven, you guys. So this is what we're dealing with right now. Let's read a couple of other translations. I wanted to show you the New Living Translation. It particularly gives you a real feel of what it's like in Babylon. It says, in your streets flowed the blood of the prophets and of Elohim's set-apart people, and the blood of people slaughtered all over the world. This is what we're dealing with here in Babylon in the 21st century, you guys. And of course, we're not in Babylon. We're reporting from Africa, from West Africa. Let's take a look. This is also from the fourth beast kingdom, the last kingdom. It says, I beheld, this is Daniel chapter 7, verse 21. I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints and prevailed against them. I want to show you guys the next verse just so we are not confused as what comes next after that. It says, until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints possess the kingdom. You guys, this is the final kingdom. This is the very last one that we're in. The fourth beast kingdom. The kingdom that will introduce the mark of the beast in the end times, as we have all read and all prayed that we didn't have to suffer through in the end of the world in Revelation. You guys, we grew up in it. This is the final time. And from this kingdom, the end of the world comes. And Yahusha comes to save us from this tragedy of earth right now. And so what is the mystery? What is Mystery Babylon? It's folding or unfolding in front of you right now. We can see the events happening right in front of us. First thing that we see is some strange person, some strange South African person taking control of Babylon and causing a bunch of chaos as he does. This person, Elon Musk, we know comes from the most racist country on the face of the planet, even more racist than America, you guys, more dangerous in certain ways, an apartheid place. You see what I'm saying? So let's just take a look at what is going on now. This Elon Musk, what family does he come from, and what is he trying to instill in America? You guys remember that salute that he gave? That is a Nazi salute. That means that he is anti-Hebrew. Don't think he's anti-Ashkenazi. That means he's anti-Hebrew, you guys. Check it out.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. I'm Amy Goodman. We end today's show with part 2 of my recent interview with the reporter Chris McGreal, who was the Johannesburg correspondent for The Guardian during the last years of apartheid through 2002. He's been closely following the South African-born billionaire Elon Musk, who was born in 1971 in Johannesburg, South Africa, and raised under the country's racist apartheid laws. Some of McGreal's pieces include, what does Elon Musk believe? And
so you can see this man was raised in Johannesburg, in the most racist place in the entire world, as an elite in that place, you guys. So this means that he was up to more than just what you see. The elites in these areas participate in wide sacrifice. Do you see what I'm saying? In behind the scenes ritual behavior. We see the outcome of it, but we don't know all of the moving pieces. We're going to try to get a hold of what's going on. This is the blood that is flowing in the streets of Babylon. You're getting ready to see where it comes from and how it's going to be implemented in the future, you guys.
How the roots of the PayPal mafia extend to apartheid South Africa. I began by asking Chris McGreal to discuss Musk's grandfather, Joshua Haldeman.
We see Musk's grandfather, Joshua Haldeman. He immigrates to South Africa in 1950, and that's really when apartheid's just started to kick in. The 1950s are when the first laws, South Africa had discriminatory laws before, but you see the specific apartheid laws, which are much more aggressive, and in many ways reminiscent of the Nazi Nuremberg laws against Jews in the 1930s. They have very similar echoes in stripping black people from the right to work in certain places.
You see that they ran the test on the Ashkenazim, non-Zionist Ashkenazim, that they left behind in Poland and in Germany in the 1940s and the early 1940s and the late 1930s. You guys, Germany was the testing ground for the racist, I think they're called pogroms, that were instituted all over the world. We know that there was an element of Ashkenaz that managed to escape from Germany and from Poland before these atrocities took place. We know one of those people for sure by name, Albert Einstein, right? He was given the memo. He got the heads up. What people don't know is that there are two factions, or there were two factions of Ashkenazi Jews. There was one that was Zionist and one that was anti-Zionist, and they were about half and half. The reason why you see the Holocaust is because you're looking at, literally in history, the Zionist setting up the non-Zionist to be killed. This is Ashkenaz, an internal civil war in Ashkenaz, where the Zionist side managed to use Germany to persecute their political enemies. Do you see what I'm saying? It was an evil plan, but it worked brilliantly, you guys, because it had a two-pronged effect going forward. What that did for the Zionist Jews was of course, we just said it eliminated their political enemies, but the second thing it did was garnish world sympathy, garnish world support. And in this way, they knew that they would manage to be able to usurp a place in the Middle East, Israel, because the world now had sympathy on this, persecuted people. It was a twofold plan. It was an operation, you guys. If you know anything about Hitler, this is the reason why there's all of these ties between Ashkenazi Jews and Nazi Germany. You guys know that those should be opposites, right? They should be mortal enemies with one another. But we see now even Ashkenazi Israel implementing the same plans, the same style of destruction as Hitler did. People are comparing Hitler or Netanyahu to Hitler. And so we know that they are not, too far off from one another. In fact, they are from the same bloodlines. We know that they are both Gog and Magog. They are the people of the Eurasian steppe, the Indo-Europeans, the Scythians of old. They're both from different tribes. This doesn't mean that they're not going to war against one another, but they're both from different tribes, from the same region, from the same people group, the same family. And with that, we know that that plan that they came up with worked like a charm. And so we see, the outcomes of that plan where you have these, Nazis, and then you have these groups of Jews, but then they're working together in certain aspects. You're like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. It makes sense if you know that the Zionist Jews used Germany to eliminate the non-Zionist Jews, and then used the elimination of the non-Zionist Jews to garnish support for the Zionist Jews that survived, and then use that to establish the state of Israel. It's a complicated game, but they definitely were able to pull it off. So this is the connection between Ashkenazi Israel and the Nazis. They're really one group, opposite ends of the same group. Let's keep going, you guys.
And movements, controlling them, confining them to areas. You already had a situation which is now, come to the fore because of recent.
My bad. My point with that was that they practiced. They practiced the style of warfare, the style of captivity, the style of dispatch, even how they were going to kill people with the non-Zionist Jews. They did experimented with them, with programs, with concentration camps, with murder methods, with psychological torture, with physical torture, all sorts of other things that they did to them, with being able to create these brainwashed soldiers, the MK Ultra. They had plenty of people to experiment on, and so they just did all of the just most wicked things that they could possibly think of, and analyzed all that data to implement it into future strategies to imprison the real Hebrews. This is the children of Israel in America, the black Jews of the dispersion, of the diaspora that are central in America, the Judites that are in America. This is what they practiced in Nazi Germany, and then started to implement all over the world, particularly in South Africa as well. We're getting ready to hear about that right now.
Events with Trump, but
you mean with Elon Musk giving the Nazi salute?
Yes, but also with the sanctions over land, is that the 1913 Land Act had already deprived most black people of land in South Africa anyway. At that point, the 7% or 10% as it was of the population that was white owned more than 85% of the land under the Land Act of 1913. So the apartheid laws kick in the 1950s. Elon Musk was born in 1971 in Johannesburg, and at that point the Prime Minister was a guy called John Vorster. And John Vorster's background is very telling, really, because Vorster in the 1930s had been a member of a neo-Nazi militia called the OB, which was openly sympathetic and linked to the Nazis in Germany. It was responsible for all kinds of attacks, but including burning Jews out of their businesses in Johannesburg.
And we're talking about what years?
In the 1930s, so the late 1930s. And then South Africa goes to war as an ally of Britain against Hitler. The OB and the groups that support them, like Vorster, people like Vorster, they actively oppose that. They actually are in touch with, OB is in touch with German military intelligence, and they plan to assassinate the Prime Minister of South Africa, Jan Smuts, and overthrow the government and have it support Hitler. That plan fails because the Germans are unable to provide the necessary weapons and back out. But in 1942, John Vorster, later Prime Minister, stands up and gives a speech, and he talks about the system that their kind of ideological belief system, which was Christian nationalism. And he says, Christian nationalism in South Africa is the same as Nazism in Germany and fascism in Italy.
You guys hear that, right? You guys hear that they were using what is called Christian nationalism as a political ideology in South Africa to establish an apartheid. This is the future prime minister who is a neo-Nazi, who was a supporter of Hitler. And so the world that Elon Musk was born into was run by this man. And he wouldn't be out of touch with this particular party or person, because he's in the upper echelons of leadership and wealth in South Africa. So this ideology was put into the government of South Africa. I mean, this is just how it was already, but established as the government of South Africa in 1971, when this ideology was implemented with this man being the prime minister. Do you see what I'm saying? Elon Musk was raised in a society with an open Nazi as its leader. Now, I'm not going to say that American society is not the same way. We know George Bush is a Nazi. We know all of the men who implemented all of the wars that we have in America right now, whether it be Nixon, Carter, Reagan, Bush, Obama, Clinton, Trump. All these are generals, and the main war is against the children of Israel, you guys. That is the main war. If you go anywhere else and anywhere else in the world, they are only practicing for the main war, which is in America, which is against the children of Israel in Babylon, you guys. So this is the 2 generations ago, the leader of the Nazi party becoming the prime minister of the most racist country in the entire world, South Africa, and then his progeny 2 generations later taking that nationalist Christian agenda and implementing it into America in a stronger sense. It's not like it's not already implemented, has long been stood as a style of governance in America a long time, but now re-establishing it as what it used to be, you guys. You're getting ready to go backwards in time, not forward, backwards. So the things that we did manage to scrape and get and the benefits that we did manage to acquire in America are gone, will disappear. And this man's grandson will establish not just an apartheid, but a war, you guys. Let's keep looking.
It's all anti-democratic. It's all the same thing. By 1971, when Elon Musk is born, that man is the Prime Minister of South Africa. And Christian nationalism is the basis of not only the political philosophy, but the entire education system that Elon Musk is brought up into.
So take us from Elon Musk's grandfather moving to South Africa in the 50s to his father, how they gained their wealth.
So Elon Musk's grandfather moves there in the 1950s. He's not particularly prosperous. He arrives without a lot of money, but it's Elon Musk's father, Errol, who makes the real money, principally through investments in emerald mines in Zambia. And, you know, mining conditions in southern Africa in that period were really pretty dire in the 1960s and 70s. Very high death rate, very poor conditions, but the owners got very rich.
So just to recap on what he said, you're seeing the second generation of Nazis or the first generation of Nazis out of World War II, traveling all over the world and implementing their ideologies all over the place. You have in Germany I guess you could call it the catalyst, the proving grounds for this Christian nationalist Nazi ideology, this right-wing, racist, pure white, everything else is expendable and exterminatable doctrine to be, primed and perfected in Germany with the style of governance and the war and Hitler's Nazi regime. That ideology is perfected in Germany. And once the war is over, then the Nazis scatter all around the world, implementing that Christian nationalist philosophy everywhere that they touch down. So literally going all over the world and spreading that doctrine with them, including South Africa, where they, right away went to procuring slaves and wealth with those slaves, setting up the same style of governance, of control That has been in other places too. Very, very starkly in South Africa. Very starkly. And we have in America the same style of governance, but out of control, wild in South Africa, with a people group that were already primed to take what was available to be taken. Manifest destiny, if you will, in South Africa. Let's keep watching.
Musk lived what can only be described as a neo-colonial life. If you were white South African in that period and you had any money at all, you lived with servants at your beck and call, you lived in sprawling housing, and what you see with Elon Musk is that when we get a glimpse into just how much money he had when he and Elon's mother get divorced. She says at the time that, well, he owns a yacht, he owns a jet, he owns several houses, so there was considerable wealth there.
Was the grandfather of Elon Musk on the record in his support for Forster?
Well, he was certainly on the record in his support for apartheid, very vividly so, yes. And he said that that's why he'd moved to South Africa from Canada in 1940 was in support of it. Now, the grandfather himself is killed a few years later in a plane crash, but it's not known what Elon Musk's grandmother's personal views of Forster particularly were, but they were both avid supporters of the apartheid system, and the grandmother lived for a number of years afterwards.
So you've been talking about Elon Musk's maternal grandparents and how they moved to South Africa, but talk about their roots in Canada.
Originally, the grandparents have no connection to South Africa. They're born and grew up in Canada. And in the 1930s, the grandfather, Joshua Haldeman, he's head of the Canadian branch of a US movement called Technocracy Incorporated. And Technocracy Incorporated is essentially a movement to overthrow democratic government in the United States and have technocrats, but big businessmen in many ways, come in and run the country. That's partly a reaction to FDR's election and New Deal and massive reforms that he's introduced in the United States.
So did you guys hear that? Basically what he's saying is that in Canada, Elon Musk's maternal grandfather was helping to establish what was called a technocracy, which is basically a buzzword for oligarchy, because these technocrats would be unelected officials that would work outside the bounds of normal governance in order to steer the population in the direction that these technocrats wanted to go instead of a democracy. Is that what we're seeing today in Elon Musk? Is Elon Musk a rich outsider who is steering the government right now in the way that he would like it steered? And is Trump the same thing? Is he a rich outsider of the political world, steering the government in the way that he wants it to go as well? Are we seeing this technocracy come to pass right before our eyes? Is this something that they've been working on for a very long time? You guys, let's keep watching.
From Canada, they would help to launch a coup against FDR?
No, Canada had its own branch of this movement to overthrow the government in Canada. Haldeman heads that branch. And through the 1930s, it takes on increasingly fascist overtones. They start wearing grey uniforms, modelled on the Nazi brown and black shirts. And so when Canada declares war on Germany in 1939 alongside Britain, the movement is banned because it's clearly sympathetic to Hitler. Then Haldeman is arrested.
Elon Musk's grandfather.
Elon Musk's grandfather is arrested. They find documents sympathetic to the Nazis and other subversive documents inside his house, and he is sent to prison for a few months and then remains on essentially a subversion watch list for the rest of the war. Yeah, so he's basically regarded as a Nazi sympathizer, a fellow traveler.
And about a decade later, he moves to South Africa. Why?
So after the war, he founds another political movement which has deep anti-Semitic roots and actually promotes the forgery, the protocols of the
Elders of Zion.
Elders of Zion. That's it. But
Protocols of the Elders of Zion. Guys, don't believe that that's a forgery, because it's not. If you go and look up that document, it is basically the structure for everything that the Ashkenazi Jews are doing right now. It lays out the program for world dominance for Ashkenazi Jews, being able to do anything that they want and using manipulation of the Torah to get away with genocide and murder and all sorts of other things. These are the type of powers that you automatically acquire by claiming to be the children of Israel. And of course, we know that they are Gog and Magog, which goes back to some really, really vivid prophecy about what's going to happen here in the future. You see that they're establishing this technocracy all over the world. This is what's happening right now, that they're putting oligarchs, billionaires in place of democratically elected officials, you guys, by hook or by crook.
Obviously, after the war and the Holocaust, there's no real appetite for that in Canada. It's a failing political movement. And so his eye casts down to South Africa. By 1950, the apartheid government has been in power for 2 years. And Haldeman looks at it and thinks that's just my kind of place, which clearly that was what he would want to create in Canada and have been trying to create in the 1930s. And so that's the point at which he and his wife, May, they move to South Africa and become very fervent supporters of apartheid.
Now, I wanted to blend in some breaking news in addition to
A really quick point of reference here. He talked about FDR and the New Deal and spending all of the money on, social programs and all over America. You talk about these are all the things that are happening in the 1940s. You've got the New Deal that is, of course, building all of the projects in all of America. And we know that the projects were designed to be concentration camps, and sold to black people by having white people in them first in order to retrieve the generational wealth that they had lost being in war, and then move up to the suburbs, which were created in that generation. The suburbs were created in that generation. To move out of the projects, white people, exclusively white people, to move out of the projects into these ready-made suburbs, and then lure black people into the projects with this same promise in mind, and then trap people black people in the projects as a concentration camp apartheid system in America. We know that America couldn't let people know that this is what they were doing, because that you would lay out the plan to oppress a people, and you can't really do that on a world stage openly and then just automatically get away with it. People would be against it, especially if you've just got a newly vindicated quote-unquote Jewish, Ashkenazi Jewish, I guess you would call them prisoners that were released from all of the death camps in Germany. You've got that on the public stage. You can't turn around and then establish it in your own country after you've just, abolished it in another. So it had to be hidden in this New Deal terminology. And that's why he couldn't, FDR couldn't say, hey, I agree with you, technocrat. We're trying to set it up here, except we're doing it in secret, right? And so he took that ideology to a place that didn't mind not doing it in secret. And that was South Africa at the time. So you can look at South Africa, you can look at America, and then you can also look at Israel, which was founded in 1948 in this same era, in these same times. So you're literally looking at 3 apartheid states being established at once in the 1940s. One in America, one in South Africa, and one in Israel, you guys. One in Israel with the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. Increasingly becoming the open-air prison apartheid system that was established in Israel. Same thing for the voter registration boundaries and the zoning legislation in America. The apartheid system that was established there, not Jim Crow, but afterwards. And then also the apartheid system that was formally established in South Africa. You're looking at the reestablishment of a deeper system, a much more oppressive system, as we know is being implemented right now. Let's keep going.
Cutting off all aid to South Africa, news of the region, and that is Sam Nujoma, the freedom fighter turned president who led Namibia to independence from apartheid South Africa in 1990, has died at the age of 95, often referred to as Namibia's founding father, known for his motto, a united people striving to achieve a common good for all members of the society will always emerge victorious. Used to be called Southwest Africa, became the independent Namibia. Talk about Sam Nujoma and how that fits into this picture of South Africa through apartheid.
So Sam Nujoma was the head of the Southwest Africa People's Organization, which was the liberation movement of Namibia. SWAPO, indeed. Really, SWAPO takes off and is able to have effect after Angola becomes independent with the fall of the Portuguese dictatorship. The Portuguese colonizers leave Angola, and Angola provides a base then for SWAPO to really fight to liberate Southwest Africa. That becomes known as the Border War. Euphemistically, the South Africans call it the Border War. They actually invade Angola in an attempt to overthrow the Marxist-leaning government of Angola, but also to keep SWAPO at bay. But the war goes on, and eventually South Africa loses that war. At that period, though, one of the things you see is that Peter Thiel, another member of the PayPal mafia, very close friend of Musk, he had been at school in Johannesburg, but his father gets a job on a uranium mine near Swakopmund in what is then Southwest Africa. And so Peter Thiel moves there as a child and goes to school there. And the thing to know about
You guys watch this. PayPal is, of course, the online payment system that everybody used to use back in the day before there was such thing as Cash App. If you wanted to send anything via online, and this is not something that I did a lot of, but I guess when you say back in the day, this is only 10, 15 years ago, you used to have to, if you were going to send digital money, you used to have to send it PayPal. Of course, nobody uses PayPal anymore, but the leader of PayPal ends up the inventor and who he's calling the PayPal mafia, the board on PayPal, ends up being these rich Nazis from South Africa that are really in charge of people's money. The PayPal used to be the industry standard. This is how Elon Musk earned his wealth, you guys. It's these scams, this Nazi money laundering, Nazi money scams that are coming out of South Africa and other different places. This is a whole other person, Peter Thiel, who comes from that same Elon Musk school of Christian nationalism, Christian Nazism, but established in another place in the South Africa region. And I want you guys to hear this, how crazy this area was in this all-black continent.
Southwest Africa. The reason it was separate from South Africa is that it had been a German colony until the end of the First World War. Then it becomes falls under South Africa's mandate, partly because at that point South Africa was a British colony. When South Africa becomes a republic in the 60s, it hangs on to Southwest Africa and it becomes a South African colony. But the population, big part of the population was of German ancestry. And you could, I remember going to Windhoek in the early 90s, and the main thoroughfare through Windhoek was called Hermann Goeringstrasse, named not after the Luftwaffe chief, but after his father, who had been a governor of German Southwest Africa. In Swakopmund, it was even more extreme. It was notorious.
So did you hear Hermann Goering was one of the main streets in this particular part of South Africa? And we know Hermann Goering as a butcher, one of the butchers that was involved in World War II with the death camps that were there, named after his father, of course, not him, his father. But still, you can understand the style of oppression that they would be inflicting upon the people that are there. Same style of oppression that they're getting ready to inflict upon us here, or not here, because I'm in Africa, but there in America. Let's continue to look.
For many, many years, really into the 80s and 90s, as a hotbed of open support, continued support for the Nazis and for Hitler. The New York Times has a story from the mid-70s of a reporter pulling up at a gas station to get his car filled with gas, and the attendant openly giving a Nazi salute and saying Heil Hitler to him. You could go to curio shops in Swakopmund and they would sell Nazi-themed mugs and flags and things, and they openly celebrated Hitler's birthday every May. Thiel went to a German school there, so that's the atmosphere he grows up in. His father is an official on a uranium mine there, and the interesting thing about the uranium mine, amongst many other things, is that it supplied part of the uranium to develop the South African atomic bombs in the 1970s, which were developed in league with Israel. Now, part of the deal with Israel was that South Africa would deliver yellowcake uranium to Israel. We don't know where the yellowcake came from. It may have come from that Swakopmund area mine, or it may have come from somewhere else in South Africa. But South Africa was shipping yellowcake to Israel at the same time, because it too was developing nuclear weapons.
Did you guys hear that? Did you hear that there's a connection to the South African Nazis and to the state of Israel through uranium? Now guys, as if you are a Nazi, salute, a swastika, Heil Hitler saluting, Nazi flag waving, Christian nationalist, what in the world would you be doing selling uranium to Israel, who are supposed to be the sworn enemies of the Nazis? Why would you give your enemy the ability to nuke you unless you weren't really enemies? This is what I mean, you guys. You have to be able to interpret what you hear in the news and then be able to make it make sense with history. Right now, you don't have, or from what you've just heard, it shouldn't make any sense to you if you're following the mainstream narrative. Because as Nazis, they would never sell their number one enemy the means by which to destroy them. No matter how much money it would gain them, no matter how much they would profit from giving these weapons out to their enemy, they wouldn't do it if they were ideological Nazis in the way that we think a Nazi is. The only way that they would do it is if there was some other league that's beyond Nazism and beyond Jewishness, quote unquote, that connects them. And we know what that is, that they are both in league with the adversary, the wicked one, Shaitan, and they are both from the same family, Gog and Magog, you guys. Because we know that the Ashkenazim are Germanic. They are Germanic. They're from the tribes of Gog and Magog. We know that they are Gothic. They're like they're like the Goths. The Goths went, we know, west into Germany, and the Huns and the Seljuks and the Ashkenazim, the Khazars, went south into Asia Minor, you guys, into Poland. These are the same people. They're the same people. They split in the Eurasian steppe, but they were all one group originally. That's why they're able to get along now in the end, because they're reuniting under the same concept. And the real concept is exterminating the actual Jews, the real Hebrews, which is why they are implementing all of these strategies that they've practiced around the world to the real show, which is going on right now in America. They've got their person Trump right there, ready to show you, by whose name is Trump, that this is what they're getting ready. The Trump means to watch, look out, trumpet, call to attention. This is what they are calling you attention to, that there is getting ready to be a program set up in America that is going to have the streets run red with the blood of the prophets, the blood of the saints, and the blood of everybody else as well. And we will get to that too, because there's already a secret program, as we know, as I've covered on this channel many times. There's already a secret program that is underway now. It's just getting ready to ramp up, you guys.
And talk about what Peter Thiel has said about all this. You know, I remember as we cover conventions for decades now, Peter Thiel standing up at the first Republican convention that nominated President Trump and, you know, supporting him and who he is.
So Peter Thiel has said of his time in Swakopmund, and particularly the school, which he describes as particularly a brutal education, that it turned him against government and into a libertarian. And I think that's an interesting element in all of this, is that one of the things that isn't necessarily appreciated outside of South Africa is that there's two kinds of whites there. There's the Afrikaners who we've been talking about, but there's a big English-speaking white population. And one of the aspects of the English-speaking population was they, on paper, said they opposed apartheid, but they gained all of its benefits. And most of them, certainly not all, there were some really heroic individuals, but most of them did very little to actually end apartheid. But one of the products of that is you have people like Musk and Thiel who have done very well, and whose parents did very well out of the apartheid system, who deny responsibility for it. They blame it on the Afrikaners, they blame it on a government, extreme right-wing government. But then they have to explain how it is that their own parents were so able to do so well out of apartheid, and then they put that down to individual talent, that they're naturally gifted, and that leads them down this whole libertarian path.
And of course, we can see that there's all sorts of excuses that they give for why they're doing what they're doing. But we know that the approach that they're taking is oppression. And the oppression is oppression, whether you admit it or not, whether you admit that you benefited from it or not. We know that in secret, you know what's going on and you approve of what's going on. And now we see the connections being established with Trump and with Elon Musk in America. They're getting ready to do some wild things, you guys. They're getting ready to set us up for a civil war. What's getting ready to happen is that they are going to foment violence against black people in America, you guys. Let's just take a look at what's happening right now. You have to see that they are responding in a way that is very dangerous in America. And we're going to let you see what's going on here. This is the violence that is being fomented in American politics right now. Let's check it out.
Yes, it is remarkable that there is so much violence. People have burnt cars, they've fired bullets into dealerships, they've scratched swastikas into Teslas of the innocent people that they're just going about their lives. They've done nothing wrong. And Tesla's done nothing wrong as a company. And so I find it ironic and incredibly hypocritical that the same Democrat politicians who would want to throw someone in prison for 20 years simply for watching.
All right, I want to show you something particular about how they are covering this story. Of course, they've got Elon Musk there, but as you can see, they've got this woman dressed in a wig and dressed in inappropriate clothing as basically a character representing these protests that are going on against Tesla. Do you see what I'm saying? And of course, some of these protests have become violent, where people who are driving Teslas are attacked, right? And the craziest thing about that is most of the people that drive Teslas are aligned with these political ideologies and are driving electric cars in order to save the environment. Do you see what I'm saying? This is the irony that these cults implement into their witchcraft, you guys, that you end up looking hypocritical by supporting any of it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Now they have this black woman out here as a character, you know, basically to make us look like fools out here, like violent criminals and fools, by depicting us in this way. You can guarantee that this woman is a plant, because of the way she's dressed and the hypersexuality behind it, and all the different telltale signs that we know that this woman is being used as a laughing stock to, you know, paint a picture of how white America is supposed to feel about us, you know, Hebrew America. You guys, this is the programming, this is the witchcraft that the Bible talks about, that is coming out of America, coming out of Babylon in the last days. I'm going to go ahead and restart this, but I'm going to scroll down so you hopefully can't see this crazy woman right here, because she is inappropriately dressed.
Things at January 6th, but not actually doing any violence. You don't hear a single word from them about the actual violence happening against Tesla. What incredible hypocrites they are! It's outrageous. I mean, this is fundamentally a case of terrorism. It's wide-scale domestic terrorism.
You heard that? Widespread domestic terrorism. Domestic terrorism can be prosecuted. Domestic terrorists can be persecuted. Anybody who is aligning themselves with this ideology can be targeted by the government in order to be deported. You see what they're doing to people. They're deporting people. They're deporting people, quote unquote, accidentally on one-way trips into El Salvadorian prisons, some of the most dangerous prisons in the world, and they can't come back. This one-way tickets. You're not going to get a chance to go back. They're literally sending people to their death when they're sending them to these prison camps. You have to understand these ideologies, these tools that are being put in place right now are going to be used to suppress the black population, you guys. I don't know if we talked about the military being purged of black people. I'm pretty sure that I talked about that on this channel with the shaving profiles that's going on in the Marines. They're eliminating people that have a shaving profile. This is black people. This means that they're getting ready to use the American military against black people, because they're purging the military from black people, which means they want a military force that doesn't include the people they're getting ready to persecute. That's what this is. You're getting ready to see a group of people be labeled as terrorists, and you're getting ready to see black people called terrorists. Protesters, Israelites, anybody with any sort of ideology that they would be against are going to be labeled terrorists, are already labeled terrorists, and they've got the tools in the political and legislative framework designed by Elon Musk right now to be able to implement some cold, hard, oppressive strategies against the population. They are calling these people terrorists, and look, it's from both sides. It's just not the Republicans, you guys. It's going to be the Democrats too, because they're playing both sides by the middle. So let me just continue this here.
With the purpose of intimidation, and it's harming innocent people. It's really terrible. And I think what we actually have to get to are the people who are organizing and paying for these attacks and protests. That's who we really need to go after, because the people at who are actually throwing the Molotov cocktails, they are the foot soldiers. Right. But we need to go after the generals, and we're going to do so. The president has made it very clear that we're going to go after those that are paying and organizing these violent attacks. And Attorney General Bondi has said the same thing. I believe that is exactly what will happen.
Do you know who they are?
We're coming for them.
Do you know who those generals are?
We know. We do.
Yes. And hopefully the prosecution will be for RICO and an organized criminal enterprise, which makes the penalties
Absolutely.
even more serious. And now to Jessica.
Yeah.
Did you hear that? Attorney General Bondi? Pay attention to that, because this is going to come back up here. And you heard this, my dog in there, and you heard what they said that they were going to do. They were going to charge them with RICO. You've seen all these rap cartels go down with these RICO laws. So they're getting ready to try to charge people with RICO, mafia style indictments. And he's talking about a specific person here. When he said, do you know who they are, who these generals are? And he said, we know who they are. So who are they? And I'll show you who they are, you guys. It's this woman right here, Representative Jasmine Crockett. This is what she is promoting to the black community right now. This is what she is doing in order to further Elon Musk's plan on oppressing black people. You have right here this representative who is a Democrat, who is literally on the other side, stirring people up to be prosecuted by Elon Musk and his government, his attorney general. Listen to this, you guys.
I'll make sure that I keep it short, but I am truly here for very selfish reasons. Starting with on March 29th, it's my birthday. And all I want to see happen on my birthday is for Elon to be taken down. Yes, I'll make sure that I keep it short, but I am truly here for...
You guys hear that? She said all she wants for her birthday is for Elon Musk to be taken down. So is that a call for violence against Tesla owners all out in these liberal areas? Yes, it is, you guys. And you saw the video in the other segment of a lot of black people that are heeding to that call to, burn Teslas and attack people that are owning Teslas and do physical violence out in the streets right now. And this politician has come out later and said that she never intended to rile people up to do any violence. But you've seen that there's been Tesla violence, right? You've seen that people have been going crazy against Tesla. And you see right here, this representative is riling people up to do just that. So you guys have to understand that this woman is just playing her position in the government in order to fool you, in order to get you to go out into the streets and to protest and to be violent on their behalf, so that Elon Musk will have a reason to persecute you. You're being played towards the middle, because this woman herself works for Elon. If Elon is the head of the government right now and he's an unelected official, that means she works for him. This is her doing her side of the propaganda. This is the way it works. It's called the Hegelian dialectic, where you control both sides of the argument in order to get an unknown action at the end, in order to get an unknown conclusion. Do you see what I'm saying? A known conclusion to the people that are in it, but a known conclusion to the people that set up the opposing argument. It's called the Hegelian dialectic. It comes from a German philosopher named Hegel. He said it's so psychologically powerful that you can control the world with it. And that's what's actually going on here. They are fabricating the ideals in the Democratic Party and feeding them to people. They're fabricating the ideals in the Republican Party and feeding it to people, and then watching the two butt heads until a civil war comes out where they can achieve their intended end, which is to persecute black people. Because we know in a civil war, with us in it, the very target of all of their hatred and animosity, the literal chosen people of Elohim, that we would be the ones to bear the brunt of the burden in any war. It's happening now, and this is the reason why Elon Musk is there, to be able to cause these type of things to happen, in order to control the government enough to try to wipe us out in a real way, you guys. This is us being manipulated into the middle in order to go into the meat grinder. Just a little bit further proof of this by this report here that I want to show you guys. Let's watch it.
Talk of civil war used to be the stuff of history class or maybe speculative fiction, but today, scholars of history and political science now openly discuss the possibility of a new American civil war. My next guest, Professor Barbara F. Walter, is an expert on civil wars around the world. She has spent years advising the CIA on the subject. In her work examining the seeds of civil war in distant lands, she started noticing some of those warning signs close to home right here in America, long before most others did. She's been sounding the alarm about the threat since at least 2008, and her message today is that we should not ignore those warning signs, but also that we can take steps to lessen the threat. Now, before she joins us, let's take a minute to dig into her findings. Walter's research looked at which countries were most likely to experience political instability and political violence in the coming years. Her work identified two key factors as highly predictive, and America checks both boxes. The first is anocracy, a term for a weakened democracy that contains elements of autocracy. The second is whether citizens have organized politically around identity as opposed to ideology. That means they make political choices based on factors like race, ethnicity, or religion. Walter's research found that both of these predictive indicators have been rapidly emerging in the United States in recent years.
Do you hear that? This is identity politics. And so what that means is that people are reverting to their roots. Do you understand what that means? It means that people are being pushed in the direction of their ancient ancestors. And everyone's ancient ancestors have been lied to about what is actually going on. We know who everybody emerges from. We know that European people come from Gog and Magog. We know that Black Americans come from Israel. But what neither group knows is they're being pitted against one another in the war of the end of the world, you guys. The European Americans, the white people in America and all over the world, by and large, don't know that they are Gog and Magog. Black people all over the world, the scattered diaspora of the Hebrews from West Africa and the Hebrews from the fall of Jerusalem deep into Africa, the Hebrews in Brazil, the Hebrews in England, primarily in America, we don't know that we're the Hebrews. We don't know that we're the Israelites, but we're being pitted in a war against, the low-level Magogites, in the end of the world scenario, without either side knowing that this fight is prophetic, you guys. Without either side knowing, we're being pushed towards these ideological concepts that don't go beyond flesh, you guys. The Trumpists are all believing that they're going to make America great again by putting white people back in charge and giving white people their power back when they've assumed they've lost it. And the other side, the Democratic side, are supposedly putting power back into the people's hands, which automatically represents oppressed people, which automatically represents black people, Hebrews in America, and rallying these groups up to feel like that's something that we deserve to have, something that we have always deserved to have, and that we should be willing to fight for. And now both these ideologies are reliant upon the Israelites, you guys. So the war is based on us, whether you like us or whether you don't. It's based on us. The pivot point in American politics is the Hebrew opinion. And what the world, or not the world, but either side politically feels about Hebrews. Do you like them or do you not like them? And that war is pit with us as the fodder. Do you understand that in a civil war, we will be the ones that will be fighting and being killed, not necessarily white people? You understand? Let's keep watching.
She writes that Donald Trump embraced identity politics explicitly and with gusto. To quote her, she says, "No Republican president in the past 50 years has ever pursued such an openly racist platform or championed white evangelical Americans at the expense of everyone else." That's a quote from Barbara Walter. For a long time, Walter found it difficult to get people to take her warning seriously until January 6, 2021. That is when Americans started paying closer attention. On that day, Trump told his supporters to fight like hell, and they would follow through with armed, sharpened flagpoles and stun guns.
This is the other side being riled up. You can see the amount of people that were persuaded into attacking their own capital. This is what's getting ready to happen on the Democratic side in the coming years, so that they will have a means by which to attack us. This is what's happening, you guys, in America. This is why we left America, because we can see the writing on the wall, you guys. And not only that, that's not the only reason we left America, but another reason is because we know that the open programs that they're putting into place, the ones that are relying upon government ideology that is actually turning out to be race politics, those ideas are dangerous enough on both sides. But what's happening behind the scenes is that the elite from both parties are actually sponsoring in secret the death of black people. You can see that there is a push towards getting people to be armed against neo-Nazis, you guys. Let's check this out.
Hey everyone, welcome back to The Breakdown. I'm your host, Sandra Bebu Boateng.
Turn now to one community in Ohio, which is now the center of a growing national debate about civil rights, hate speech, and the Second Amendment. NBC News correspondent and NBC News Now daily anchor Morgan Radford visited the town of Lincoln Heights, where residents have formed an armed community defense group in the wake of a neo-Nazi rally. Morgan joins us now. You were there just on Tuesday. What did the residents tell you about what's going on?
Yeah, I was there just this week. John, it was fascinating because what's interesting is that this town was founded during the Great Migration back in the 20s as a refuge for black citizens, which is why it was especially painful when neo-Nazis suddenly appeared in this 3,000-person majority black town. But they decided to fight back, taking up arms and patrolling their own streets. Now they're at the center of a much larger debate about protection and free speech and who gets it.
Do you hear this? Do you hear what's going on? That the neo-Nazis, and if you remember that thing that happened, it's been a month or two ago, when the neo-Nazi group came into this all-black town and were waving swastikas and, yelling out racist remarks, and they were escorted by the police. The police were actually there with them and making sure that they are unharmed or whatever. Police were there. They were masked up, which means that they were more than likely police themselves. But what we didn't know at the time was that it wasn't the neo-Nazis that they were trying to pump up right there. It was the response that they were trying to get. They're trying to get black people to arm against them. That's what this is all about. That's what this is. That's what they're getting ready to show you now, is that they are arming and they are preparing themselves for a war. This is the people of Lincoln, it's not Lincoln, Nebraska, Lincoln, Ohio, getting ready and arming themselves to go to war. This is the civil war that we were just looking at from the other video. people are being encouraged. This video is a video which is encouraging people to arm up against Nazis. Now, am I saying that we shouldn't arm, that we shouldn't have any self-protection? I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that they're definitely leading us to that solution by instigating violence, instigating ways in order for us to take up arms against them. And we know at that point, they stick the drones on us or whatever else that they've got up their sleeve in order to violently suppress an insurrection that definitely is to come. While they're doing that, we are still being chopped up in the underground, illegal murder machine. You guys have to recognize that there have been some very strange murders in the news recently. And anytime you get strange murders in the news, you automatically know that they are police murders. Any of them that look sloppy, any of them that look like the conclusion is halfway, any of them that look like the investigation process was only half done, this means that they are police murders. Just like this 13-year-old girl that was found dismembered, for lack of a better word. And you guys have to excuse this. This is a very graphic story. Check it out.
We continue to track the latest in the murder of 13-year-old Kimani Latig. She went missing earlier this month. 6 days later, police found her body inside a burned-out home in East Toledo. Her father is charged with her murder. Columbus police shot him while attempting to arrest him last week. Now, he has not yet appeared in court or been booked in jail. Kimani's death has sparked conversations in our community. Everything from the role of Lucas County Children's.
You guys heard that, right? He hasn't appeared in court yet or been booked in jail. And this guy's supposed to be charged with murder. So there's a huge problem with that. Not only that, if you look at the details of this case, there's a lot wrong with the case. The child wasn't with her biological mother. This guy, who they're calling her father, isn't her biological father. She's with her biological grandmother, who at one point in time wrote a fake ransom letter and put it out on social media and was called out for it being fake. Like literally copy and pasted messages from her own phone to her own phone in order to make it seem like there was a kidnapper who was requesting money. It turns out that none of that was true, but it also is not being reported about in the news, which means this woman is being protected. The grandmother, who had custody of the girl who was missing and then was found murdered, is being protected by the investigators, which means that the investigators know about who killed this person. And it must not have been the dad or the person who was pretending to be the dad. It must have been someone else, because why would you then protect the grandmother if the grandmother wasn't involved at all, or if there wasn't anything going on with her? Why would you protect her from this? Why wouldn't you just prosecute her for making false claims, or making this thing up about her? Even at the very lightest, she's trying to get money off of the situation, so she does deserve prosecution for that. Why isn't she not? Why isn't her story being questioned? Because those are huge red flags as to being involved. The reason why is because this is a kidnapping ring, a kidnapping and murder ring that is in Ohio, that has existed in Ohio for many years now. If we can take a look at another article here to get a better light on what's going on there. Check this out.
all kinds of concerns to be involved in this, whether the children are runaways or whether or not they get up and involved in drugs or gangs or some other violent crimes, or they were taken against their will, but there's no evidence to show that. There's no Amber Alerts or anything like that. But it is an alarming trend for this time of year for sure.
It is an alarming trend for this type of year, sure. Do you understand that that's not the way that you address 1,000 children coming up missing in your state over a year? That is absolutely not how you address it. That's an emergency, you guys. That's an emergency. Give me 1 second. We're going to take a quick break. And we are back. So we just saw the 2 videos about the children who have been missing in Ohio. One child that was missing 2 weeks ago that they found murdered. And then 1,000 children last year, I believe it was. And we don't have any. They said 30 children missing in 2 weeks. So if you've got over 1,000 children missing in 1 year, you don't have just kids running away or anything like that. What you have is an organized kidnapping and murder system going on. And you see that most of the children were black children, that you have some white children and Mexican children in there too. Most of the children are black children, you guys. And so this small girl that has been abducted and murdered, you know, our prayers go out to the people who cared about her and her family. But it looks like the people of her family were involved with the police and involved in whatever system that they have established to kidnap and destroy the lives of all of these children who are missing in the upper Ohio area, you guys. Over 1,000 children. That would be 2 a day. 2 a day, you guys. This is what's going on in America. You don't understand that they have methods in which people can be killed and they can get away with it. And they involve the police department. You are literally looking at the evidence square in the face. Whenever you see an investigation that should go one way, like towards the grandmother who's making false ransom notes, and it never goes anywhere or it goes in another direction, that means that the police are involved, that the investigators are involved. We talked about the twins that were murdered on top of Bell Mountain on the 15th of March. They were murdered in a supposed murder-suicide. We know that it wasn't a murder-suicide. We know that those boys were taken up there and murdered. And the only way that it could be reported or investigated as a murder-suicide is if someone is lying. And if someone's lying about the case, that means they're involved. You're looking at the murder machine going on behind the scenes right in front of your eyes. Anytime you see a story misrepresented in any sort of way in the media, it's one of theirs. And they will report it so that you will have the false narrative to go after. the reason why they have to do that, they just can't sweep it under the rug and say nothing about it, is because they have to have that brainwashing story in your mind so you believe whatever they tell you about what they've done. That's why they're reporting these, because it's their work and they want to make sure that they have an alibi. So they're reporting it in the media, you guys. The GBI, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, is the lead investigators on this case, and they're putting out false information. Guess who else is the lead investigators on another case? You have the case of Young Scooter, you guys. Do you know who Young Scooter is? Young Scooter is the Atlanta rapper who worked, right alongside of Gucci Mane and gained notoriety in the 2010s. You have to understand that he was murdered on his birthday over the weekend, which means this, again, is a ritual. You also have to see that there's a lot of elements in this investigation that don't make sense either. That somehow there was a fake 911 call that initiated the police to come to Scooter's house, or Young Scooter's house, whatever his real name was. And then he flees, or so the story tells, and he ends up somehow with an injury to his inner thigh, and he bleeds out, you guys. You don't bleed out from an injury to your thigh right away. The femoral artery is something that you can die from right away. But if you get attention on that artery fairly quickly on, you can save a person's life. If the police are right there on the scene, how does someone bleed out? You don't bleed out being with first responders on the scene, because it's the job of the first responders to administer aid. And this is what should have happened, regardless of what the truth in the situation is. You allowed someone to bleed out in your custody. This is the secret murder machine active. We don't know what killed Young Scooter, but the GBI is now in charge of the investigation. So whatever it is, whatever happened, is being swept under the rug, because that's the job of the GBI, you guys, to cover these things up with a story, an alibi that does not involve the police. The first thing that they put out in the press conference is even though he was in our custody, we are not the ones that killed him. Okay, that's not what the evidence states. If he dies in your custody, you're responsible for what happened. Do you guys understand that if you die in custody, that you can't be given aid unless they give you aid? This is what police custody means. This is why when you're in police custody, anything could happen, because you could, be injured and they just decide not to give you aid until it's too late. If you guys know who FBG Duck is, he was assassinated in downtown Chicago, and the police came on the scene, and he's still alive on the scene kicking, and they barricade him off, don't allow any of the first responders to get to him until he bleeds out. This is the murder machine in action, ladies and gentlemen. This is how it works in the United States, behind the scenes. And so whether we know it or not, whether we believe it or not, whether we can point it out or not in our own everyday life, it's happening. And it's happening in the exact way that the Bible says that it would in the last days in Babylon for the children of Israel. It says, in your streets, in Babylon's streets, in your streets flowed the blood of the prophets and of Elohim's holy people, and the blood of people slaughtered all over the world. This is what we're looking at, you guys. And Elon Musk and Donald Trump are getting ready to send it into overdrive, because now people are going to have an excuse. They're getting ready to cause people to come together on, I believe it's April 5th. They're getting ready to cause people to come together against Trump in a huge action. There's a huge protest that's going on that is scheduled for April 5th. Don't participate, guys. Not in this one. Not to preach, not to teach, not to do nothing. Because We don't know what's going to happen. From what it looks like, they're priming us to be labeled as terrorists in the United States in order to be violently put down. It seems like a trap. You guys stay vigilant out here. This is Hebrew News.